all the organizers
I
here
know.
so far.
There was a person on. Maybe they got frightened off.
They
It
did. I
scared
think
me.
we're a little scary sometimes. Those marketers can be a little frightening.
We're loud.
Liz, why don't you kick us off with some Doug updates? I will go to slide number 2. And
Fantastic.
we've got Liz Hallen here with us from Doug to talk
Yes.
about what's going on over there. So, Liz, I'll turn the mic over to you.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Monica. I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate it. Yes, as Monica stated, I'm Liz Hallen here at Dynamics User Group, and for those watching this recording and might not be familiar with who we are a global community that is here to encourage people to connect and network with each other and really help educate each of you in your individual roles and professions. We are a free community that focuses on Dynamics 365, Dynamics GP, and the Power Platform
Hmm.
products. And this Doug meetup that we are on here today is just one of the many programs that we offer for our 44,000 worldwide members. If you go to the next slide, you will see a list of our programs, I think. Yes. So Meetups is just one. We do also offer educational webinars presented by subject matter experts in our community. We have online discussion forums for quick question and answers. We have our Team Up program allows you to find solutions and services from ISVs to really enhance your products. Our Skill Up on-demand training courses are more in-depth courses. Most of those or some of those do have some fees associated with them, but they're on-demand, really great in-depth training. And of course, our YouTube channel has a ton of recordings available from our prior conferences, as well as wonderful meetups such as this one. So you can find all the marketing professional meetup recording there as well. But we're most probably famously known for the DynamicsCon conferences. We do host a live and a virtual one. And I think we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. But my next shout out is we are hosting what we are calling Doug Regional Meetups. These are a little bit larger meetups than what you're joining here today. And we've had a couple of really successful ones this year, but we are going to be in Ohio in August. In the Southeast, still looking at locations for that one, but sometime in September. To Austin, Texas in September, and then we will be in Toronto in November.
Exciting.
Yes, very exciting. In case you missed DynamicsCon Live in Denver this year, we would love to have you join us in Chicago next year. It'll be held the same week. Registration is now open. Yeah, you can go to the next slide, Monica.
Okay.
Registration is open. Check out live.dynamicscon.com. And for all of our meetup members, please use this 10% off promotion code to get 10% off of your registration rate. And here's some fun pictures. Monica, you were just talking about the
Yeah.
pictures from live, and so we grabbed a few live pictures and other meetup pictures, and would love to have all of you in Chicago next year. It's gonna be big and grand again. If you're not able to travel to in-person conferences, we are still looking at hosting and having our virtual DynamicsCon conference coming up on November 13th. This is a full day of free content provided by our wonderful experts and community members. The cool thing about this event is we open up session submissions to everyone in the community. They're open now. They will be through the end of August. And once we have those submissions, we'll turn those around and let the community vote. So this is truly a voting way of getting the top voted sessions on the final agenda. So it's truly community-driven content where the community gets to choose all the sessions. And in the past, we've seen thousands of members join us for this virtual event. And so I would expect we'll see the same this year. And I think that
Awesome.
is the Doug intro. So I will
Yes.
turn it back over to you, Monica.
Thanks, Liz.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah.
Yes.
Welcome, everybody. We are excited to. Can you say excited and data in the same sentence, Bobby? I'm not sure. But
I love
I
data.
love
That's my
data.
favorite. So yeah. So
Okay,
for me,
good.
yes, that sentence is quite accurate.
So I am excited. Bobby is excited to talk about data and all of the potential that lies there. Bobby, I'm going to turn the mic over to you to introduce yourself, and then I'll introduce myself, and we will dive into some of this great content.
Yeah, so I'm Bobby Small. I've been in the Microsoft channel for about 25 years now. Started as an end user, doing all the functional development, IT director, just kind of, everything from an end user standpoint, all the way, through an AX journey starting at 3.0 up into 2012. So really, focused on every aspect. And then moved into the partner channel in 2020 and kind of evolved my desire into something different, aside, kind of still in IT, but more towards what we're talking about today, which was using my experience, but also using that to evangelize the software and to make relationships. And so that's kind of where I come in, and I do a lot of marketing activity with my company, just kind of as a periphery because I like it and just kind of has gravitated towards it. So love the conversation around data. I mean, this is the key foundation to any of this when we're talking about CE and relationship building. So happy to be
Yeah,
here.
awesome. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Monica Hoyer. I'm the marketing director at Influence. We are a marketing automation platform that seamlessly connects with Dynamics CRM. And I have been in the email space for probably over 25 years, which is showing my age along with the gray in my hair. I have been in the dynamic space. I'm relatively new to the dynamic space. So I've been here since I think 2021, I've been with Influence, and they're really was the impetus to introduce me to the space. And one of the things I love about the dynamic space is how open and embracing it has been for new people in the space and helping people learn about things. And so I was excited to be asked to help with the marketing professionals meetup group. And we've been doing this now for, I think, about 2.5 years.
Mhm.
And yeah, this is our third session this year, I believe. And we do have one more coming up, and you'll get more details about that kind of closer to the end of the session. And then we have another one kind of to wrap up the year. So we do have some great things planned for the rest of the year. But for right now, let's dive into data and what does this mean? So inbound marketing strategies are really important when you're starting to talk about data, because really that's how people are going to find you. And it's really how people start to engage with your brand, and really helps you as a brand position yourself as an expert in the field. So people are going to find you through these inbound marketing things, and I'll go into each of these, but it's really through that content that you're creating, the social media engagement that you have going on, SEO, which is such a key part of all of that content creation, as well as email. And inbound marketing really builds that trust with folks who are coming into your funnel, and allows people to consume the content that they want to consume. So it's not push marketing. You're not giving people what you think they want. They're actually consuming the stuff that they really want. And then hopefully engaging with your brand even further to get more information, to maybe purchase your product, hopefully purchase your products, because right at the end of the day, that's what we're here for, is to make money. The struggle that a lot of brands and companies have is with capturing that information from folks who they don't know. So when someone is reading a blog, or engaging on social media, or reading a white paper, or attending a webinar, they're not necessarily giving a lot of information about themselves. And they have to register. So you get an email address, you get a first name, you get a last name. But what other data and what other information can you capture in that process? And that's where we're kind of leading with this conversation. So lead magnets, if at the top of the slide, you'll see they're a really great way to capture information from folks. And lead magnets are things like ebooks, white papers, checklists, infographics, webinars, things like that, where you're asking people to attend or be a part of something, and then they have to give something up. I call it a paywall, even though they're not actually paying. They are giving you something, and it's something of value to them. Their email address, their phone number, those are very valuable things to folks when you start to talk about how we can contact, how we can convert that person. Forms and landing pages are a really great way to gather some of that information, and progressive profiling is something that maybe not a lot of people do or know what it is, but we've started to do it where you ask 2 or 3 questions on the first page of a form, and then you hit submit, and then you get 2 more or 3 more questions. And the beautiful thing about this is if the person doesn't stay engaged all the way through the whole progressive profiling, you're at least gathering tidbits of information each step along the way. And so you can go back to them in the future and try and have them answer some more questions. Part of, I think, what people also don't realize is that, and I meant to mention this when I was talking about lead magnets, is that when people are consuming content, that's really valuable information as well. Because you're saying, okay, this person is attending a meetup about data. They're really interested in data. Maybe I should follow up with them with articles about analytics. So that kind of thing, that little tidbit of information can kind of open the door even wider for your team, your marketing team, as well as your sales team. So some other ways to do inbound marketing, behavioral tracking, and that's a little bit what I just touched on right now, is looking at where people are consuming content, what content people are consuming, and really making sure that the messages that you're putting out there to those folks from a sales perspective as well as a marketing perspective align with their interests about your organization. So if they jump from a blog post about data over to your pricing page, over to your, a feature of your product, one of the feature pages on your website, you're getting a lot of information. You've piqued their interest with data. They've looked at the pricing. They haven't been scared away by the pricing. And now all of a sudden they're looking at features. It's a great way to then start another conversation with them and say, hey, here are some really key features. People are talking about these features. These are the features that people like the most. And so having the ability to do that behavioral tracking is going to help you really segment and personalize your communication with these leads and prospects. It also can work on the other side. Once they've actually become a customer, you can start to see where your customers are coming back to your site and what that information is telling you. Another thing I wanted to touch on here is lead qualification. So making sure that you know who are those hot leads. And lead qualification comes in a lot of ways. It's really making sure that the person who is consuming that content, engaging with your brand, is an ideal customer. And that requires a lot of background work. And I've talked a lot in the past about customer journey and what that means. And lead qualification is part of that process. Is this someone that actually will be a good customer for us? And if they're not, how can I help them to find the right product or service? Because, putting out that good karma into the world it never hurts, and can come back to you and really help you in the future, because they'll say, oh, I remember engaging with this brand. I wasn't quite a fit, but maybe now with this new brand, or as we've grown, we would be a good prospect there. So lead qualification, making sure they're the right fit for your company, super important in this inbound marketing. Lead scoring on the email marketing side of things is really super important. And that has to do with what pages are people consuming, how often are they coming back, a lead score for A large company might be different than a lead score for a smaller company. Every audience is different. So really look into where are your high converting leads, where are people consuming this content, how can you really identify those folks who are really hot in the marketplace so that your salespeople aren't wasting their time in reaching out to the people who aren't qualified and really aren't interested or in the market right now for your products and services. And then because I'm in email marketing and marketing automation, automated campaigns are one of the top things that you should be doing. Using surveys and preference centers, that'll help you understand exactly what customers are looking for so that you can tailor these messages. All of these things together, and really, I would say the last three things are going to help you really determine whether or not someone is in the market and ready to buy. And so leading from there into our next slides, which is personalized messaging. And Bobby's going to take over here and talk about personalization.
Yeah, I'll probably be reflecting back on a lot of what you said as well, because you've laid a great foundational piece, and I don't do a lot of the technical background, but I know it. When you're talking about data and your customer resource management system, whatever you're using, we use CE, so I know a lot about how it's being set up for me to where it gets to a point where I step in as more of that business, kind of the next level nurture that we'll talk about when it gets really super personal, because, obviously it's tough when you're talking about a large, a set of data to be personal to every person at a certain level. You can do all the things that Monica talked about, which was keep learning the behavior to get the right, message to that person. So you avoid what we would call marketing fatigue, email fatigue. You don't want to, you can't just hammer your database, every day, every week with messaging to the same people, because they will start to tune it out. And so it is important to do the things that Monica's talked about and even get further into that process. So a couple of things I just want to bring up. I'd heard and have continued to hear that webinars maybe are, waning, that there is some webinar fatigue, but I was assured most recently this week that there is some empirical data that says otherwise, that again, what this person mentioned was webinars within their organization are actually the attendance is increasing, the feedback's increasing on people, getting good information. But what was important is what we're talking about is that these are being really target marketed to. So I, as a consumer, I'm not getting every webinar this organization is putting out, but only the ones that are funneled to what I've determined through what you talked about, like through my touch points on the website, in the community, that have built up this kind of funnel towards me that says, hey, we've got 100 webinars. This guy is going to be interested in these three for sure. And so I'm only getting information on those three. So I don't get this, ad nauseum, loop of information that kind of becomes overwhelming, where I might miss out on a couple really good opportunities to learn just because I'm kind of tuned it out.
It's Bobby, it's almost, we talk a lot about in the email world of spray and pray. And really it's that personalization. It's that making sure that you're targeting the right content to the right people. So that and it's all based on this data. Yep. Right. And I think that's where a lot of people struggle, is where do I get this data and how do I use it? And even if I have it, I don't know, my team's not big enough, and all of those, you problems. Bet, right. But I love that. I love that about webinars, because I hadn't thought about that even.
I keep hearing, like, internally we've talked about it. Sometimes as we do a webinar every couple of weeks, and some are really well attended, others not, and we might have a spate of like 2 or 3 where we don't get anybody, or at least the attendance we think we should be getting based on the topic. And you start to wonder, is this still the medium? Are people consuming differently? We know they are, but should we still be putting effort into these things? And it was just an interesting, kind of foundational assurance that yeah, webinars still are effective. We need to be really careful in the way we market to them.
Mm-hmm.
Jumping into the personalization side, I was thinking about this, and as I was kind of putting together my thoughts around presenting this, and the number one thing that makes my job easy is I love what I do. I love talking to people. I love learning about people. So getting to a level of personalization is actually pretty easy because I like doing it. So for me, that's such an easy jumping off point. If I'm talking to you or somebody I meet at a conference, it's not hard for me to start digging and learning about them in kind of the more I think you mentioned the psychographic way. It's like, yeah, we
Mm-hmm.
know you are a finance manager and you work for this company in this industry and blah blah blah, and that's all demographic and that's cool and you need that too. But when you can start to layer in stuff like, oh, but you love dogs and you enjoy beach vacations and you play a guitar and whatever, you
Mm-hmm.
start to learn these things. And again, it's not an exercise of I'm checking off boxes because I need to put this in CE later. I just love doing it. So I
Mm-hmm.
love learning it and making that personal connection. And so, I mean, gosh, if you can get to that level, then this kind of slides into a really easy zone to start building out something that, because at the end of the day, you don't want to waste anybody's time. This is kind of where we're pointing. So it's like if you don't want to send information to somebody that they're not going to use or need because that is
Right.
becomes white noise. You want it to be something that's valuable. So the more you learn about them, the more value you can provide. And so my number one, as far as getting personal is don't be afraid to get personal.
Right.
Share and let them share back, and then keep that and make those notes quickly so that you don't forget this cool information that you can then use later, to help strengthen your relationship, because that's the end goal is going way back to your point of push and pull, methodology. We are 100% educational. We want to just educate and educate and educate and educate. So everything we do kind of leans towards that, unless we're being specific at an event where it's a sponsor event or something, then you might be slightly different approach. But as far as the information we put out on social, we put out in our blogs, on our webinars, podcasts, we try to keep it all informational and educational. And so, yeah, that's kind of our nurture zone is just being out
Mm-hmm.
there and bringing this kind of value to the community. Um, and so that's from the top of mind, from like really strictly personal. I've used plenty of information on, and this would be what I would call the next level nurture, right? Because we've already got, so if you think about the buckets you talked about, we might go to a convention or a conference and speak to 50 people, and then you start to look at those 50 people and you say, okay, 25 of these are strong, potential, nurture campaigns, but they're just going to be in our general bucket of like, hey, you're going to get a monthly newsletter with some information. We don't know enough about you yet to really start making a determination on segmenting out a little deeper. But maybe 10 of those, we got some really decent information on next steps. So those are going to go into a different bucket. They're going to go into our general population, but also into more of a lead opportunity. And maybe it's a warm lead. So we just want to have them out there. Maybe it's like you said, it's more of a top of mind lead, which we need to follow up right on. Hey, we really want more information about Power BI. Cool. We know where to go with this. We got you locked in. And those are the areas where I can start to do my magic, where I feel like I'm bringing value from my conversation there. I bring that into the communication, so it goes above and beyond, like you said, those kind of automated campaigns.
Yep.
And then that
Definitely.
the technical side of segmentation strategies, when you're building your CE database out, when you're putting this data in place, getting all this information into your system, whether it's CE or whatever CR system you're using, so that the technical folk can start to build out proper segmentation, and scrub that data and get it the attention it needs to start building out that tailored experience for the person. So again, they're not getting junk or white noise; they're getting stuff that they're really going to be able to use.
Yep.
Um, and
Yeah.
that kind of leads into what, again, you touched on this. What is a lead? What are these touch points? Every company has to figure that out for themselves. That's the threshold you have to get in and figure out where, when we're lead scoring and we're building up that threshold of like man, they've been in the general population campaign, and they've gone to this article, this article. We've noticed in the last week they've read an article about upgrades. They've attended our webinar about upgrades. Blah, 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 upgrade. We know that this is starting to creep into a piece where we want to push them into maybe some further attention to see if they're ready to talk about upgrades. And maybe they aren't. Maybe they respond back, no, we're still not ready. We're just digging. Cool. We know it. We can lead that and re-rank them and do all the things we need to do there.
Awesome.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think of other things, as far as personalization, from a sales team, you mentioned this, again, we don't want to waste our team's time. So again, it goes back to knowing, again, we look at that list. If we get 50 people, we don't want to try to call or interact with all 50 if we know that half of them immediately are just going to need some long-term nurturing. So we're trying to, balance the time, effort that we spend for our sales teammates to make sure that they're focused on the folks that really want attention and need attention right away.
Yeah. And also on the slide, I said dynamic content. I actually probably should have just said content, right? Because from a sales perspective, on the marketing side, for sure, you need that dynamic content because maybe the quantity is so much larger and you're really trying to communicate with people, everyone who, visited that blog about, this feature about your product. And so from a marketing perspective, dynamic content's super important, but then taking that information and making sure that it's in your customer relationship system so that the salespeople can also see that and understand it and know that this is the content that the prospect has been consuming and interested in, and we've already reached out to them and they've responded to emails and nurture campaigns that we've done. But then the salespeople say, okay, great. I can take that behavioral content or that behavioral information and reach out to them so that they realize it really is a one-to-one communication at this point, or that psychographic information, and say, this is what we know about you. Would you like more information about that? Because my company can help you do that. And not only my company, but me. I think at DynamicsCon, I talked a little bit about this as well. It's people do business with people. They don't do business with businesses. You're going to win an account on the sales side because somebody likes you and they enjoy engaging with you. And they assume that, if the salesperson or the people that I've already talked to have this level of, I connected with them, then the rest of the organization must be similar. And that's typically how it plays out. You start to see that there are ways to engage with folks from that standpoint as well.
And it's weird in life. I've kind of taken this philosophy from as long as I can remember. I wasn't the one knocking on my manager's door demanding salary increases. I just felt like I'm going to go out and do my job. I'm going to operate at a high level and good things are going to happen. It was kind of, it's a pie in the sky. It may be naive sometimes, but it generally worked out for me. And I feel like that's what you're saying as well. It's like, I'm going to go out and do what I love to do, which is talk to people about Microsoft in this case. And eventually, like you said, they'll come to trust and realize that Ellipse is a good, or whatever company you work for, this is a company that I want to do business with, because they're at every event. They're always, there with a good point of view, with education, they answer, all these things that lead up to wanting to do business with somebody. And that's key. And just to wrap up this piece, again, for me, staying educational, not being afraid to get personal. If you're at an event, make those notes. Don't, immediately, download and get those notes out into whatever system you're capturing them, just so you don't forget that touch point, because it's a big event and sometimes that'll get lost and you don't want to lose it. Data, like we talked about, it's exciting, it's valuable. It's the most valuable thing in your organization. So make sure you hold on to every little word because it can be very important. And then you'll be able to use that and help, again, accelerate that process when the person's ready. So when they, like you said, when they cross that threshold or when they come to you, you're not starting this relationship fresh. You've got all this information, and boy, with adding Copilot in, then you're really cooking. So then
Right.
then you can just click this guy and say, hey, I'm getting ready to call Monica, and boom, bop, 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 bop. It tells you all the things, and
Yep.
and you're ready to improve the conversation value right out of the gate and get that person moving faster.
That's a really great point. Yeah, having all of that information in across all of your Microsoft systems, Copilot can then help you in that pre-call prep and say, "Oh, okay, yeah, right. I remember now. I remember my notes and all of the ways I've engaged with this person."
Yeah.
That's a really fantastic point.
That's all Copilot wants to
Um,
do is knock on my monitor as I've got my CE open. It's like, hello, I'm ready for you. So it's there waiting, no doubt.
So Bobby, you are very much on the sales side of things, and you really work with your customer success team. Once you've sold the deal, now let's move people over onto that onboarding. So let's talk about a little bit, how does that data then flow, right? From okay, I've done all of these things. This is how I converted this person. Now all of a sudden you have to take all that knowledge and transfer it to an entirely different team. So talk to me a little bit more about that customer handoff and onboarding
Yeah,
process.
it's interesting because it can vary from opportunity and relationship to relationship. I think one thing I know from personal and then from all the people I work with, we're all kind of guarded. I once I do build up a relationship, like if you and I are building this relationship, and then I know it's getting time for me to turn it over to the next level. I'm not the sales director. I'm truly that first line of relationship building and getting to know folks and getting them comfortable with our team. And it is almost like, it's like I don't want to quite give that child away yet. It's like, I'm very protective because I want to make sure they get the best possible handoff and they're comfortable. So I take a lot of care in that and make sure that, I'm getting my team up to speed using the data we've collected and the conversations we've had so that the comfort level I've created with the person I'm talking to is going to remain consistent with the team. And part of that's the team trust, like you said, when you're working at an organization, likely you're doing so because you are integrated and your philosophies are similar and all that matches. So it's not like you're going from 180, when you're turning
Right.
somebody over. So that's a comfort zone for sure. And for us, it does, for me, it's, we call it a soft, it's like, I'm not just gonna, talk to you and then all of a sudden just, have, somebody call you the next day.
Right.
It's going to be, I might be, I've been in meetings for a year where
Right.
I'm still there, as just kind of a security blanket for nothing other than
Mm-hmm.
the fact that I've made a good connection and I have value to the conversation. So it varies on the person, the organization that we're working with and how long that might be. And then that flows, that could flow again from that director of sales or that team into the project management team once it gets to that level. And again, another handoff where we might be involved at that level until everybody's comfy again and they move down the train through the rest of the process, whether it's a small project or a large project. Um, I trust all the people I work with, so it's an easy process, but I just
Mm-hmm.
handle each of them with a different, set of gloves because I just
Yeah.
want to make sure that everybody's comfortable by the end of the day, that we're not that hey, we've had a great relationship. Now we're going to bring this person in, and when you're comfortable with them, they're going to take you to the next level
Right.
because that's their expertise.
Again, it's personalization. It's knowing the
Mhm.
customer and making sure
Yep.
you're delivering the way, even through this offboarding or onboarding process, offboarding from one team to the next.
Yeah.
Um, so part of this is also, ongoing customer engagement, which I'll talk about a little bit here, making sure that you're continuing especially on the marketing side of things, to engage with those customers, providing them content that they're going to find valuable based on the information that the sales team and marketing team and also customer success teams have gathered throughout this entire process, throughout this entire journey. And so making sure that the account managers are doing regular check-ins, making sure that the content that you're providing not only for prospects but also for customers is valuable to them, and you're providing that value through newsletters, exclusive content. This is one of the something that I've done in a few jobs, which is, hey, we're coming out with a new white paper that's got this great research on it. Let's release it ahead of time only to customers. So it's
Yeah.
seen as a value and a benefit to folks who have already purchased. Hey, you get this information first. And then updates, product updates, updates in the company. Like maybe if if you have a real small company and everybody knows everybody else and your customers know the majority of your employees, sending out, updates about what's going on in the organization. Again, people like buying from people. And so making sure you're continuing to engage with those customers even after the sale is super important.
You bet.
So part of this is also building this community, right? And what does that look like? That means, let's host events. Let's go to Doug and see who we know there and have conversations with these people and really connect with them. Connecting face to face is, since the pandemic, it sometimes is hard, and some people prefer to stay at home, and I totally get that. And then some people really enjoy at least once a year coming together and seeing these people that they know, on this little tiny screen, face to face, and really feeling that energy. And so making sure that you're hosting events, attending events, creating webinars that foster that community and that engagement, coming to meetups like this, so that you're really getting to know people throughout the entire community, the whole Microsoft community, so that when you do go to an event, you're like, hey, I know you, I saw you present, or I remember that you asked a really great question at this event. So, having those interpersonal connections and building that community as a brand for yourself, but also as a brand for your organization is very important. And Bobby, you do an amazing job with this, especially with your purple. I can
Thank you.
always find you at every event.
So yeah, we were just at an event, a huge government event, like 3,000 people, and we were at a networking event. It was a tougher networking event because it is a very close knit group of financial professionals in the government sector. So not as easy to, it's not like going to Summit where you like I already know everybody and you can kind of easily make waves. This was, a little tighter knit, and I'm walking through and all of a sudden I hear my name. And it was a gentleman I met at a Dallas user group, and he's like, I knew it was you. Number one, your height, and you're in all purple. So that branding, it does pay off and does lead to, again, it opened up a networking opportunity there at this, kind of, like I said, a large event where it was a little bit a heavier lift to get integrated. I'll reflect back a couple things I loved about what you talked about. And I just heard this analogy and I thought it was perfect. It's a particular penguin that brings its mate pebbles that it finds that it thinks are pretty, as an honorarium. And I feel like that's what I love to do, after even in the cycle, after the cycle. If I know you're from North Carolina and I see something from your hometown, whatever, that sparks like, oh, you might be interested. It's totally unrelated. It doesn't matter if it feel, this is my own personal journey and how I, use and build these relationships and interact, and that I'm going to send that to you just out of course, because like, of course you would be interested in this, and so I feel like I'm hopefully bringing those pebbles to folks. That's something they'll enjoy. Again, it doesn't have to be business related. It could be totally unrelated.
Right.
And I was just at an event where kind of a pebble was thrown to me. We were talking and around the table about various interests, and one of the gals at the table said, I'd like to crochet. And I was like, yeah, I tried. I totally failed. And I'd like to learn, but I don't know. And she literally showed me how to crochet at the table and, insisted that I learn. So I got a crochet kit and I'm going to try it again. And so I just dig that kind of interaction, and it just goes beyond. That's the kind of thing that can drag beyond, the actual cycle of a project or something. It's to me, again, it goes back to what I said at the beginning. I love what I'm doing here. And so it's easy opportunity for me to make the relationships and want them to continue. I just feel like everybody should be friends in whatever way we can.
Yeah, and I think that also speaks really volumes to the Dynamics community, the Microsoft community. That's what we're there for. It's not just about the software, and that it's also making these personal connections.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that we can take outside of just in the business world in general. Making those personal connections brings so much more value to everyone.
Yeah. Your
And
life,
at
you
the
never
same
know when
time,
something's going to change, right? You meet
right.
somebody that you spark something again outside of business that,
Yep.
is life changing to you, or opens up and broadens your
Yep.
horizon. It's a fun place to be.
Yeah, for sure. So the last point is now customer feedback and advocacy. So Bobby, why don't you kick things off with this in terms
Yeah.
of, how do you keep engaging folks, and why are these customer feedback and advocacy things important?
Yeah. So I'd say, one thing I was talking earlier with a colleague about, projects that go awry. A lot of projects can go south, and it's not that some of these projects we're talking about with F&O and BC and CE, they're huge projects. These are 18, 24-month projects. It's never going to go perfect, and so knowing how to react in those moments is important. And so getting your customer feedback, whether it's within a project or after a project, and how you react to that feedback. One of my favorite things to do is to read reviews if I'm going someplace. And I like to look for the reviews where the company has answered, good or bad. That to me is more important than the review itself, because these reviews I take with a grain of salt. And
Right.
and use them for just to get a feel. But what I really love is when you say, I had a great time. Oh, we're so happy you had a great time. Come back anytime. We had an awful time. Really? Why did you have an awful time? I'm the owner. Call me at my cell phone right here, right now, and we'll talk about it. This tells you a
Mhm.
lot about the organization. So it's all about that feedback loop you're creating, to improve your business and improve your relationship. Your goal is to retain your customer base and make them happy. They're not every moment they're not going to be happy, but if you have an issue and you know how to solve it quickly, you know how to work with that customer through that feedback loop, then man, you're way ahead of the game. And
Yeah.
there's multiple ways you can do it. Again, there's at times it can be overburdening. You want to make it easy to consume and not a fatigue opportunity where you might wear them out. We certainly have incentive programs set up to help ease this. It could be something as simple as gift cards, or maybe more tied into your business. It's support hours, based on whatever incentive you've got. It's a referral or a testimonial or what have you. But getting these in place, are important for the health of your relationship, but also it helps you to show the type of business you are at the end of the day. So you can start to use those referrals and testimonials to better build your brand, and for again quickly accelerate that understanding of who you are as a company.
Yeah, and I love looking at our reviews and looking at what people are saying, out to the public about what works and what doesn't work in our product, because then we bring that back to our
Yep.
product developers and say, hey, people maybe it's one person, but still one person is having a problem with this. How can we help them solve that problem?
Yeah.
And how can we improve their experience with us? I think that's super important.
You bet.
Um, and again, it also talks to that's more data that you're gathering about that customer. Now, it's not even in the top of funnel; it's more the bottom of funnel, that loyalty and advocacy. And hey, if we can solve this problem, if this is a pain point with them with our software, and we solve it, that customer's gonna stay with us for a little bit longer at least. And then
You
when they
bet.
bring up another thing, let's continue to engage them. And maybe it's even worth it picking up the phone call and saying, let's just have an honest conversation. Where, if this is one pain point, are there other pain points with our software? Let's have that conversation. And it's not just up to the client success or customer success department to do that, but marketers and salespeople are more than willing to jump in and engage with that as well. So
Yeah.
it's really a holistic whole team effort for
Yeah.
engaging with
Everybody has to have their
customers.
ears open when you're talking and listening. Because to your
Yep.
point, maybe you learn that customer A hates being called out of the blue. And
Right.
and that's a major issue for that person. So you learn immediately, okay, cool, through some survey or some feedback or some information that they want to hear by email first, or they, Teams is the way to do this, or, they want a certified letter in the mail or a pigeon to deliver it, whatever it is that makes them happy. You're going to learn it and you're going to use it. And that's the important thing. You're building the relationship out, knowing how they interact. And that goes beyond customers. That goes to personal, it's like, that could be your peer-to-peer relationships. It's all about learning and using that information to better strengthen that relationship.
I don't know that I'm ever going to communicate with someone via carrier pigeon, but I appreciate the creativity there, Bobby.
Yeah.
Well, moving on to Q&A, I don't see any notes or any comments in the chat here, but I do want to open it up. If anybody does have questions, we're more than willing to answer some questions. And I also, while we're waiting for that to happen, I do want to let everybody know that Angie and Bob McAdam are going to be talking on Thursday, August 22nd at noon Eastern time. They're going to be talking about ROI and crushing it at in-person events, which, I know there's a lot of people on this call that do love those in-person events, but it's always hard to allocate ROI to that. Marketers struggle with that regularly. And so I'm super excited about this next conversation that we're having. Angie, thanks for coordinating that with Bob.
And I just say this, we typically, it's been kind of we'll call it policy or philosophy that in-person events are for sales, business developers. But man, every time I do one of these, like, I wish we had a marketing person here. Because you can pivot in the moment to what's happening, and you need them on site. Like, every time they're on site, we do better. So it's good to have a good cross section of your team there to really get I think hopefully the benefit that you're expecting out of this. I think there's real strong ROI to getting a cross section of your team there to these events.
Yeah, because you are seeing not just prospects when you're attending these events, there are customers there as well. And so it's super helpful to have all
ISVs,
these different folks.
Partners, Microsoft. There's just there's layers upon layers of what you can get out of an in-person event. And if you're limited, if you're one person, you don't want to be in a situation where you got 4 people deep trying to talk to you, and you're trying to, somehow juggle that with your eye and your hand and your elbow to one person, like, trying to figure out how to keep everybody satisfied before they walk away, and knowing you're missing an opportunity somehow.
Yep. So everybody should look for that. It's going to be up on the Marketing Professionals Meetup page. Bobby, thank you so much. This is, I could go on for a longer time, but
me too. I love it.
I want to be respectful of everybody's lunch hour, at least here on the East Coast. I appreciate it. I appreciate you. And thank you so much for joining me today. And thank you for everybody out there. And look for information on our next meetup. We'll talk to you all soon.
Thank you so much, Monica. I appreciate it. Thank you,
no
everybody.
worries.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye-bye.